Namaste, great morning, everyone. I wanted to read something that I wrote a long time ago, and it has to do with the outcome of the path here and things that I found out, the wisdom one finds out along the way of what the path is, what the path isn't, cognitions that one comes through, and the reality of realization and quantum, etc. So at the end of this, I'm going to put in some URLs to a few interviews that I had done. One is in the Duality Magazine, and then there's another one, couple other ones from Bat Gap. Did an interview with Bat Gap, and then there was one other one. So I'll go ahead and put the URLs there. If anybody's interested, they can watch those interviews or read the one. I thought about reading the one from the Non-Duality Magazine, but it's a little long. If somebody would like to have it read, would rather have it in video form, let me know and I could do that. Okay. So, when something is stated from here, it's not from what's been read and studied, but from the direct cognition of a hard-won path of wisdom. It is not said in order to put somebody down, nor to tread on their belief structures, but rather to aid another in breaking through the structures that keep the suffering persona in play. It's an act of compassion and doesn't come out of arrogance as some may assume. There's nothing to be arrogant about. Realization is nothing other than living within the center of our natural self. It is the pre-birthright of all life. The great news, and paradoxically the difficulty, is that we're always liberated as total potential. The quantum reality of mind creates and sustains the seeds and gardens of our bondage. In seeking more control, what takes place are more velvet bars. So let me read that again. The great news, and paradoxically the difficulty, is that we're always liberated. But as total potential, the quantum reality of mind creates and sustains the seeds and gardens of our bondage. In seeking more control, what takes place? We create more velvet bars. Holding the mindset of a limitational birth and death self, all seeking done in order to secure its safety, is again another hindrance and a jail. It's only when we stop searching the externalized powers, gods, heavens, etc., that the confronting of the conditioned self may take place, and the knots of illusion may be cut once and for all. Okay. If you're still looking for gods and realms, etc., then you're still searching for the Advaita realm. So you're not going to get to Advaita when you are traipsing through Advaita and clinging to this and clinging to that. It just keeps the mind in the realm of Advaita. Okay, so let's continue on. There are two ways that you can reach to Advaita. One is the total expansion of heart until self consumes the world and its own identity, and simply love remains. Or the second way is that path of negating what is not the eternal unchanging is, taking apart what self is not, until only that divine and unchanging source is imploded into. Then one enters into the pregnant void that is empty in nature, yet contains the whole of the universe and its fragrance. In either case, the me as a singular, need to be protected fallacy is over. Before realization, there was a life that had the flavor of seeking and mostly just existing, was attempting to snatch moments of pleasure, seeing what needs to be fixed, etc., mistaking personal powers and psychic realm experience is somehow more advanced. Well, no matter how many cities appear, they do not translate out to a sense of peace and settled being. Okay, they can be rather just another support to the me, even when couched in terms of being used to aid the world, or the false humility of I'm only a tool in the hands of God. The point is keeping of the I as a separation. So these are some stumbling blocks that one can easily fall into when going towards realization. When these cities start appearing, okay, then one starts engaging them. But no matter what dynamic you're engaging them in, they keep a separation of the I persona in place. Okay. When realization happens, okay, then when realization takes place, the world, all its beliefs about God, me, the nature of existence, the seeking, the clinging, the desires, the aversions are in one moment beyond time shattered. I mean absolutely shattered. Everything you thought you knew in one instant has changed. Okay, what a blow. The ideas surrounding and creating a limitational me story that comes and goes is over. Implosion. There is only absolute, without name, without form, impersonal intellect, without knowledge. Relational knowledge raises not its head, for that is the realm of duality. There's only overwhelming is, beyond any dispute, whole, forever one without a second. And if the world ends in a heartbeat and all of creation falls away, still this is and shall always be. Total simplicity, unchanging. This is, which as sustainer makes possible. It makes possible the ability of thought, love, the fragrance of pure experience through motion, which appears to subdivide into the indivisible into existence, okay? So let me say that again. Okay. This unchanging is, which is always the sustainer, makes possible the ability of thought, love, the fragrance of pure experience through motion, which appears to subdivide the indivisible into existence, or the Advaita realm. Okay. Self is a misnomer, for there's no personal self as such. It is an all-encompassing absolute, without question, pure, unchanging life, the life of all life and the death of all death. And this is, which is beyond a separation of mind as thought and creation. This is what is the divine essence of not two. Okay? It's also not one. Okay? Now this is why in Advaita they will always say not two, not two, not two. Why do they not say one? Why is it that they don't say one? Well, here's the reason. It's always said as not two. Okay? Because it's also not one. As one is substance and divisible. As it may be seen, this is not able to be translated into divisionary speech and cognized in its fullness by mind, limited to conceptualized ideas and frameworks ingrained as points of self-experience. Okay? It blows the mind to bits. Sometimes all words fall away. The world at once is totally changed, and at the same time, nothing's changed. There's a body, it speaks, yet no point of a seeking self remains. This can't be explained logically. Attempting to think in seeking a word or conceptualized images is most difficult. This type of interaction falls away. What comes in its place is only spontaneous in the moment, and then it falls away. Sometimes it simply doesn't arise, and there's only the stillness of pure awareness that is in that moment. Okay. After realization, it takes some time to come back into some semblance of what others would term a normal life, as one can no longer relate to seeking. There's now nothing remaining to look for. To questioning, there's no longer anything to hold doubt, to desire. There's no longer a me in place that feels a lack or a need. Relationship, one is whole as is. Life becomes simply a pure experience without complication, without fear. For there is only liberation, and indeed has always been. But unfortunately, for the dual mind, even suffering is a part of liberation, a pre-birth right. Some will look and say, then who's speaking? Oh, you get this one a lot with the Advaita realm. If there's nobody there, if there's no persona, then who is speaking? What's speaking? Okay. That's the question. If there's no me, how can speech take place? The I that is simply the singular life force of not two. The me that remains is likened to a wisp of fragrance without solid moorings, aware of mind yet not contained by mind. It's neither one nor another. It is at once the whole of creation and yet forever separate and distinct. It's something most wonderful yet totally natural. There's simply a flow and a dance that remains. Nataraj. Whether creation or destruction, the dance remains. So thank you for allowing this space and this flow to take place. Have we gone anywhere? Where is there to go? Okay. Be well and happy, for there is nothing to fear as life begets life. So these are the cognitions that come along the way, that one has been seeking freedom, but there's always been freedom. But because there is quantum, the fears one projects rules their life. They create more bondage for themselves. Okay? This idea of being a persona that's going to live and going to die keeps people bound in their own imaginations. Okay? When realization takes place, all of that blows out immediately. And what's left is just that still mind. There's no rambling thoughts anymore going, pushing or pulling or dragging. And life becomes moved into a different way. Even though the body's here, the body is acting, people see it normally acting. Okay, the cognition is very different here. Like people will ask sometimes, aren't you excited? You're going to go do this, you're going to do that. No, there's no excitement because nothing has taken place yet. It's not in my realm of reality until that moment is. Okay? It doesn't hold anything. It has no reality. And when that moment is over, it's gone. Okay? So your sense of time is more fluid. It's different. You can do an event, but the minute it's over, did it ever happen? So your cognition is different. When realization takes place, first there's this big awe and wonder. Everything is magical, just full-blown. You feel. If you look at a tree and the leaf moves, you feel it in the heart. You just feel the movement. Okay? Very palpable. You feel. so easily entertained. You could sit on a park bench all day and do nothing and just be amazed at everything that is. This is so far beyond oneness, okay? People talk about oneness. It's sort of like one, where everything, you feel a connection. And that happens early on in a path. People talk about oneness and they think that's realization. They think that's Advaita. That's not Advaita. That's a beginning of feeling that interconnectedness, but there's still something separate. Okay. There is that point where one has God, they say like God realization. If you are connected to Krishna, you'll feel Krishna in everything. You'll feel Krishna. You are Krishna. They are Krishna. All is Krishna. That's what you'll feel. You'll have that bhakti. You'll have that bhakti going. And that bhakti will expand in expansion. Okay? And that's a very fun time. Okay? There's just bliss. One is running around blissful in this expansion of bhakti. But that's not realization. Okay? So people get caught at these points thinking that they're there, and they have only begun the path. There is so much further to go to enter realization, where the blowing out takes place and the mind enters that state of turiya, or they call it turiyatata, and it's blown out. Okay, and just that stillness remains. And always, forever, that Advaita realm of not two, not two. Now, when I was in India, I had a maths professor that wrote a paper. Only 15 people in the world would understand it, okay? He's one of those genius types. And he overheard me say, God has to be the zero. God can't be the one. And he perked up. He understood that because all he thought was in math equations. So we had very interesting conversations going. So yes, God is more towards the zero because it's infinite potential. It adds value to everything, yet it has no value within itself as far as structure. Okay. It's, like I said, it's the infinite potential of everything that will ever come into being, but it has to be in motion before it becomes Shakti in the Advaita realm. Okay, once it's in motion, it becomes Shakti. The Advaita realm, it's propelled in a way, then it goes into all the different various vibrational elements. Depending on the type of vibration, it manifests into something different. Okay, color, sound, etc. All has to do with these vibrational elements. Okay. And again, people are always, in one sense, free, but they're free to create bondage. And this is what they do out of ignorance. Nobody wants to be in bondage, but they do it out of ignorance, out of this false idea that they have to protect this me. This me is all important, this ego, this set of experiences that have been gathered. And there's that fear of death. Oh my God, what if the form goes? Oh my God, I'm going to die. I need to protect this. I need to protect that. And so they set up their own bondage, their own bars, their own continue to feed these dramas, these traumas. And the more you pay attention, the more you feed it, the more it grows. The more substance it has, the more solid it becomes. So they become their own worst enemies, seeking for something to free them when the only thing that can free them is themselves. Okay. Gurus are there to help open doors, but you have to walk through it. It's your path. It's a singular, solitary path, especially to realization, because what needs to be confronted is your own mind spin, your own drama, your own illusions and delusions that you hold to be valid. Okay. So those are the things that need to be confronted. My path was the path of neti, not this, not this, not this. Of sitting. Okay. And you'll see in my interview, I think it's the one on the non-duality, how my guru was so important. If it weren't for my guru being so harsh and throwing me back on myself, I would still be in the spin of illusion and delusion. And his being so difficult, so hard on me, yelling, screaming in my face, was what threw me back on myself to be able to break through the last bonds. Okay. So if people want to read that, they can read that. I'll put the links there to the non-duality magazine and the for half of the thing, it's supposed to be non-duality. They're not asking about non-duality. They're asking about everything in the Advaita realm. I didn't get it. I finally said, when are we going to go to Advaita? Anyway, yeah, when realization also first takes place, one has a tendency to speak differently because there's no longer an I in place. So one doesn't use that word because it's not right. It doesn't feel right. There is no longer this one, this I, this ego self. And it's not done to try to put yourself on a pedestal or sound grand or whatever. It's just not part of that cognition. It feels phony to do that. It's not the reality of what remains. So you get a lot of flack from that. In fact, when realization takes place, at first one is in quietude. You don't even speak. You don't even want to say any words because all words are duality, and it feels so foreign at that point. And when realization takes place, there is a settling process that takes a good 4 or 5 years to settle into that permanent state of stillness. Okay. Many things that one goes through. Like I said, at first, everything is just, you're in awe. It's magical. It's different. The whole world has changed and nothing has changed. All at the same time. Everything's different and nothing's different. You look at the outside world, it appears to be the same, but your whole interaction, everything is changed in an instant. The things that were driving you are now gone. If you've been a seeker for lifetimes, there's a shock. Now there's nothing to seek. There's nothing to... The answers lay bare. It's right there. Undeniable. The whole reason for being is now gone. So to speak. A bit of a shock. Okay. But eventually, what takes place, one goes back into life, one settles, and the overwhelming awe becomes the normal for you. That quiet, that just in the flow of the moment becomes the norm. It becomes the normal way of being. No biggie. At this point, trying to remember what it's like, there's no more cognition, no more relationship with what it was like to be in mind and be driven by those thoughts and those traumas and those things that were ongoing. That falls away. It doesn't come back. Now, you can reroute. Some people can have a very quick instant of cognition, but then they reroute. They reroute into the meism. So, very important when things fall away to stay in that quietude. Read the Ashtavakra Gita at that point. Read the Vivek Chudamani at that point. Then it will become very clear. It's like, yes, 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 yes. Not like, what is this? It's absolutely your consciousness, your cognition, And it just helps to stabilize so one doesn't go back into looking and trying to find and trying to figure out and trying to define. Because when you do that, when one is that point trying to define, again, they are putting in place Advaita, persona, separation. Okay. Advaita is not separation. Okay. So I am going to leave this here for now, and I will put those links in the bottom if someone is interested to listen to the interviews or read the Non-Duality Magazine article. You're more than welcome to. Namaste. Have a great journey. Bye, everyone.